Welcome back to Homeowner Talk. I'm John Leach. David and I would now like to share with you an interview with Sarah Berry. Sarah is a longtime Homeowner Association board member at Green Valley Ranch, has also been involved in the Homeowner Association industry for years. We'd like to share some insights with you on an on-site interview with her.
But Green Valley Ranch is a wonderful community, and I really did enjoy serving on the board because I had excellent board members serving with me. When I was managing, I found that board members who got education and went to some of the classes were much better board members. And the reason I say that is because I could have been telling them something for 10 years. But when an outsider said the same thing, it was like, Sarah rocks, because Sarah has been telling us this forever. So I really found the board members who were educated were much easier to manage, and they didn't make as many goofs because they proactively stopped a lot of the problems that they would have gotten in if they hadn't had the education. There is a difference of opinion out there on educating board members. Some managers think that a little bit of education is dangerous, so they don't want the board members educated. I'm just the opposite. I find that educated board members make the manager's job a lot easier because then they're not having to pull them all the way to do things, and they understand proactively putting things in place so the conflicts are minimized, so the manager doesn't have to deal with them. Some of the most common conflicts that arise that a board has to deal with are dogs barking, parking. Parking is a huge issue, and in Green Valley Ranch it's a huge issue because the streets say no parking, and yet there was a law passed that said that you can't control the city streets, and so it's a real problem. Some of the other issues are architectural issues that come up. Somebody wants to make a change to their home and the neighbors don't want it, so that becomes an issue of what's appropriate for the community and what isn't. Those are just some of the few that come up. The challenges that board members face to resolve conflicts has a lot to do with the confidentiality and not being able to tell one party what's going on and what they're doing. So it becomes a huge challenge for the board because they can't share things that are going on with another owner. If they could say we're fining them, we're taking care of it, then the other person would shut up. But right now they can't talk about it. With the economy the way it is and with the foreclosures, it's causing a problem in our community. It's causing a problem in a lot of communities. In my association, we only have one house, fortunately, that has serious problems, but the two neighbors are taking care of it. They're watering, they're mowing, they're making sure that nothing dies, so that if you were to drive through my community, you wouldn't know that that was a troubled house. That's not happening in most communities because in some cases there's 40–50% in foreclosures, and what's happening is the owners that are paying their assessments are then being forced to pick up the slack from those people who aren't, and in some cases it's kicking them over the edge to where then they're in trouble, so that it is causing serious problems in the associations. One of the things that I used to do when I was dealing with conflicts with board members, the first thing out of my mouth would have been, have you talked to your neighbor? Because talking to your neighbor first solves a lot of problems. If the neighbor's dog is barking, in one particular case, the neighbor didn't even know the dog was barking because they would leave it, the dog would go out the doggy door, and all day long it was barking. So bringing it to the owner's attention definitely helps. But neighbors talking to neighbors is huge, and I found that social events, getting neighbors out in a social environment to talk about things to where they know their neighbor, is a big help. Because typically, if you know somebody, you tend to treat an issue a little bit different. Board members not getting along with each other is just a fact of life. Personalities are different, and some people think that they know it all, and some people are just more mellow. And so having a specific Robert's Rules of Order resolution that says how they're going to operate, so that every director gets to talk once first before another one gets to pop in, stops a lot of that with the biggest voice getting control. They go around the room and have the discussion before they come up with a decision. Even on my board, at one point, I was considering bringing in an outsider to do some team building, because sometimes you can't solve it within. And the manager wants to just everybody to get along, and the manager is one of them. So bringing in an outsider for this team building sometimes works. A couple of really funny stories that happened. There was one case that came before the board for a hearing. The owner could not do what we were asking them to do. And it was really interesting, because once an owner shows up at that hearing, it's kind of like, yay, because we can work it out. We can talk to them about what's going on in their life. And it was really interesting when this homeowner came and said that the reason that she could not comply with what we were asking her to do was because the moon wasn't aligned properly with everything. So that it was really hard for the board not to laugh, but we understood that that was her issue, and then we were able to work through it. And now the moon's aligned, you can take care of it, and blah, blah, blah. The other one was when we had 30 owners that showed up with somebody for a hearing on a dog. And we thought that the issue was going to be the dog was a real problem. Come to find out, when we wouldn't let all the owners into the hearing, come to find out that no, they were there in support of the dog. And it was all about a birthday. Somebody didn't get invited to a party. So typically conflict isn't about what they're complaining about, it's usually about something else.
I'd like to thank Sarah for sharing those insights with us. I thought it was interesting, David, that just like Lindsay and Sonia, she talked a little bit about education and how getting the board educated is such a positive thing in problem solving.
Yeah, it's very important. I also sense a common theme today, and that's communication.
Yeah.
Sonia and Lindsay mentioned it, and so did Sarah, and I think that's very important to solving issues, in addition to education and knowledge. So.
I know Lindsay talked about listening, getting a chance to sit and listen to what the other side, what their thoughts and feelings are, and sometimes when you get that, and you stop talking long enough to hear what's really going on, sometimes you can make a much better decision.
That's correct.
Anyway, we really appreciate Sarah for sharing those insights with us. We're going to take a short break again, and then we'll answer a viewer question. So stay with us, and we'll be right back.